The federal Department of Justice is moving to reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. For more than half a century, weed has been listed as a Schedule 1 drug, placing it on the same level as highly addictive substances like LSD and heroin, which are classified as having no currently accepted medical use. But under the latest proposal, marijuana would be moved to Schedule 3 alongside drugs like ketamine and steroids. That move would recognize some medical uses for cannabis while acknowledging that it has a lesser potential for abuse. But reclassification would not end the criminalization of the drug, even though most states now allow for medical or recreational consumption of marijuana. In December, Ohio became the 24th state to legalize adult use, and 38 states now have some kind of medical marijuana program. There's also a long road to go before reclassification, I should say, would be accomplished. And joining me now to talk more about this is a panel of my Spectrum News colleagues. Curtis Jackson is a political anchor for Spectrum News 1 in Ohio. And with me in studio is Bobby Cuza, political reporter for Spectrum News New York 1, who has extensively covered the marijuana industry in that state. So now, Curtis, walk us through what the process of reclassifying marijuana will look like.
Well, it is first of all, a very long process. It, of course, starts with the Biden administration saying that this is what should happen. And then as they move through the process, there's going to be a period of public comment and then a potential rescheduling here months after that public comment. And I say potential because a lot of things can still happen. Remember, it's still an election year. President Biden has been vocal about his support for practically descheduling marijuana. Former President Trump hasn't. This puts marijuana policy on the ballot. And then, of course, there are the potential legal challenges that could arise from all of this. So we're far from a, one and done sort of situation. This is going to be a long process that will likely play out both in the Capitol and also in the courts.
Okay, so now, Bobby, what would reclassification mean for the cannabis industry, and why would anybody be opposed to it?
Well, for one thing, even though this is really a historic shift in policy, it doesn't actually have a lot of practical impact for consumers, right? If you're in a state like New York or Ohio where it's already legal, it continues to be legal. If you're in a state where it's illegal, it continues to be illegal, and you can still be prosecuted for marijuana crimes. But this does do a few things. For one, there's tax implications. So cannabis businesses can now write off certain business expenses that they couldn't before because they were dealing in cannabis. There's also implications for federal research into the benefits of cannabis. But there are some who are opposed. Both some on the side who believe that cannabis is more dangerous than maybe a lot of people acknowledge. And then on the other side, legalization advocates in some cases are actually against reclassifying it to a Schedule 3 drug because they see that as a half measure. They think it doesn't go nearly far enough in actually addressing some of the ills of marijuana prohibition.
Okay, so now, Curtis, Ohio, your state, is the latest place to legalize recreational cannabis. How has the process been playing out so far?
Well, most recently, there was a move by the governor to introduce legislation in the State House that would provide some legal framework for the sale of recreational marijuana. Of course, Ohio has had medicinal marijuana for years now, but now we're talking about the sale of marijuana to adults over the age of 21. How does that look? Well, the state legislature hasn't been able to come to any sort of agreement. Essentially, we have more conservatives in the Senate that are essentially saying we need to make some changes, we need to tighten the rules, especially when it comes to home grow. And then you have Republicans in the House who are essentially saying we might want to just take what the voters have approved here and start from there. So this is still a process that's still very much in the process of actually taking place. But at least for now, it looks as if there will be some sort of recreational sale sometime late summer or early fall. How that looks, though, within a legal framework is still questionable.
Okay. And now, Bobby, I'm assuming that a reclassification would help Joe Biden as he seeks re-election, especially at a time when 7 out of 10 Americans appear to be in favor of legalizing marijuana.
There's no doubt that public opinion is on Joe Biden's side here. There was a Gallup poll last year that found 70% of Americans favor legalization, and that includes about half of Republicans. So this is a bipartisan issue. It's not only Democrats who are in support of this. We've seen some Republican lawmakers come out in favor of legalization. So I think Biden is hoping that this is a winning issue for him and that it could also help him with younger voters. And we know that the support among younger voters has been a little bit soft, but whether this actually helps him get over the top remains to be seen.
Okay, and then Curtis, I mean, just like your swing state of Ohio, voters in Florida are going to decide whether to allow recreational cannabis as well. How exactly does legalization by ballot measure work, and could that face legal challenges as well?
Yeah, there's a bigger hurdle in Florida. It requires a 60% supermajority approval of voters in that state. Ohio was 50% plus one, although there was a change, you may recall, last summer to raise that to a 60% threshold. So voters in Florida are really going to have to turn out if they expect to see recreational marijuana legalized in their state. And then, of course, there are the legal challenges that are there. And then there's the party structure. The Republican Party in Florida just recently came out in opposition to Amendment 3. So there's already some political pushback there. Will that be enough to energize younger voters? And as the Biden administration is hoping put Florida in play, well, that remains to be seen.
All right. Thank you for watching our YouTube channel. Let Spectrum News be your resource for balanced, in-depth political coverage, and click the subscribe button right here. You can also download our app or watch us on TV to learn more about the candidates, where they stand on the issues, and more. We'll see you then.